Hello everyone, and welcome to a look at our GameCube collection as of the beginning of 2020. The GameCube was an interesting system for me back in the day because I played a lot of it multiplayer at friends' houses, but it was probably my least used of that generation behind the PS2, Xbox, and Dreamcast, so that was kind of an oddity there. But over the years I've always come back to it and really enjoy what I have for it and have a pretty decent collection. I love the design of the system. And speaking of the system here's the GameCube console we have with this really cool Resident Evil 4 skin. I still want to grab an Indigo GameCube, so that we'll have two of the system then. I had an Indigo one back in the day, and I'd really like to get one of those, but I really like this Resident Evil 4 console here. Because Resident Evil 4 is not only a fantastic game, it was originally an exclusive for the GameCube. No longer, obviously. It was ported to the PlayStation 2, and then the Wii, and the PS4, and I believe it's on the Switch now, and who knows what else, PC. But originally it was a GameCube exclusive. Then my favorite version of one of my favorite fighting games from that console generation, Soul Calibur 2. I do have it also on the Xbox and the PlayStation 2. To have all the different versions, and that was one game where a lot of people I know had multiple different versions for the extra character, and just in general, it was, I don't know, it was a marketing ploy that really seemed to work. We played countless hours of this, and again, I said I played a lot of multiplayer GameCube at friends' houses, so I think this is my favorite overall because of that. Because I played this one the most over at friends' houses, and we even had the little portable LCD screen with the battery pack on the GameCube, and took that to the beach one year, so that we would go to the beach during the day and the boardwalk, and then late at night before bed, my friend Brian and I sat up in the room and played Soul Calibur for hours and played it in the car and things like that. So we played Soul Calibur 2 a lot for the GameCube. I do like snowboarding games, a big fan of the SSX series in particular, but I really enjoyed this GameCube exclusive 1080 Avalanche. I only played the original on the N64 for, I don't know, maybe 20 minutes and never really got into it, but this one I really enjoyed. It is beautiful looking. It still really holds up today. Visually, it is pretty astounding. It's short as far as the number of tracks and things available, but what they do is very creative, and I absolutely love when you get to the Avalanche segments. I remember spending so much time on those just because it was an incredible amount of fun. It's a very great snowboarding game that I wish would come back with another one of this caliber. Then we have SSX 3. One of Amanda's favorite games, one that I have not played before, Animal Crossing on the GameCube. This is the second version of the game, and the first one that we got here in the West, and was incredibly popular, and now at this point in time we're looking forward to the Switch version coming out pretty soon. Lord of the Rings The Two Towers. I have all the Lord of the Rings games on the PlayStation 2, and then just another copy of the Lord of the Rings Two Towers on the GameCube. Yet again, because we would play this kind of multiplayer, we would just take turns and that kind of thing. If I remember correctly, the Return of the King is like you can do it two-player. Played that many years, but the Two Towers I remember getting on the GameCube, and we would just pass the controller back and forth and go through the whole thing. And it was a lot of fun. We actually did that a couple times in a row because it was just a fantastic game. It was so much better than I expected, and one that really pulled off the feel of the Lord of the Rings in a fun, action-packed way instead of just as a story-based RPG. Tomb Raider Legend, still to this day one of my favorites in the series. And I have other versions of this, but this is the GameCube copy. Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 3. And this is the last one in that series that I really enjoyed. I know a lot of people like 4. I never got really into it. Really, just those first 3 are the ones that I was into. And then the series lost me after that. Rayman 3, Hoodlum Havoc. Good platformer, and now a great platformer, Sphinx and the Cursed Mummy. This is one of the few times where this is a game that was on multiple systems at the time, but I only have it on GameCube. Most of the time, those games I have on the PlayStation 2 and maybe on something else. But this one I only had on the GameCube, and I think my brother had. Yeah, my brother had it on PlayStation 2, and we both enjoyed playing this game. Fantastic, overlooked gem of that generation. Dragon Ball Z Budokai, not the best of the 3D Dragon Ball fighting games, especially now. Man, there's so many of them over the years. But this was a huge deal. I remember when this came out, everyone was so excited because we had a 2D one on the PlayStation 2, and it was a lot of fun. And this wasn't particularly amazing, but I can't explain how cool it was to get a 3D Dragon Ball Z game back when this was coming out, and this is still when DBZ was a huge deal on Toonami, and we were all just immersed and obsessed with the entire franchise at the time, so this was a big deal when this came out, and we played countless hours of this on the GameCube and on the PS2. BloodRayne. These games were fun. I have them both on PS2, just the first one here on GameCube. I think the second one was released on GameCube. But it was just the first one here. These were a lot of fun, and I feel like they're just completely forgotten now. I've not heard anyone mention these in ages, but they were a ton of fun. Stay away from the Uvai Bowl movies, just check out the games. A rather terrible game with a very interesting premise, Darkened Sky, the game with the magic Skittles. I actually did a review of this a few years ago, and I'll link that at the end of this video and in the description. It's not a great game at all, but it has its weird charm to it, and just that unique premise of the magic being, using Skittles is enough to entice, I think, anyone's curiosity to want to check it out. It's a very interesting little RPG. Another game that was a GameCube exclusive, Tales of Symphonia. This is still the only version of the game that I have played. I know it's on the PS2 in Japan, and then of course on the PlayStation 3, the compilation. I've not played those at all. I just really enjoy the original GameCube version. It's fantastic. One of the better Tales games. Is not my favorite, but it is a great introduction to the series, and I think this really propelled the series in the West and started to gather a fandom, which the Tales series is definitely much more popular over here than it used to be. We used to not get very many, and the PS1 titles that we do have are worth lots of money now because there weren't very many copies out here. But this is the first one that was really popular. Tales of Symphonia, still an amazingly fun game. Lost Kingdoms, great game by From Software, as published in Activision here in the United States. Really enjoy the card-based summoning system, and I just love the atmosphere of From Software games. The Kingsfield series is great. This has a lot of similarities to that, and as far as the atmosphere of the game. I did do a review of this as well, so be sure to try and remember to link that. Great game, and there is a much harder to find sequel, Lost Kingdoms 2, on the GameCube that I've actually never run into a physical copy of before. The start of the Final Fantasy Crystal Chronicles series, which to me, this was the only one that I have any interest in. I don't know, it's a weird little side series in Final Fantasy that I'm glad this one is being ported to the Switch and getting a second chance, because I think it is very overlooked. This first one here is a lot of fun. I think superior to any little bit that I've played of the ones that came after this. I really enjoyed this, and you have also in this one, you could connect with the Game Boy Advance when you're doing multiplayer with your friends. There's a picture of that on the back. That was an interesting idea that I never really used. I mostly played through it single player, played a little bit of it multiplayer, but primarily I did a single player playthrough. And I really enjoyed this. So there's something a little different and still had great Final Fantasy charm. I think this was just very, very well made, and it does work really well as a multiplayer. Now, aside from Tales of Symphonia, these are my other two favorite games on the system. From my favorite developer, Monolith Soft, we have Baten Kaitos and Baten Kaitos Origins, which are two games that I keep thinking and hoping there's going to be a collection, and it never happens. And I think this is going to go the way of the Xenosaga series, where it's just going to be one of those things. I think that they're going to do internal analysis and think that it's not going to be profitable, and it's just not going to happen. I feel like we'll never get a collection of these. It would be really, really cool, or even if we got a sequel, or even like a spiritual successor, that would be great. These were fantastic games that are still to this day exclusive to the GameCube. So that is our Nintendo GameCube collection as of 2020. One of the smaller ones from that generation. Again, it was my least played system at home, but I played a lot of other games in these over at friends' houses, a lot of multiplayer stuff, and we're really down to just one game that I'm really looking for. There's only one game left on my wish list for the system. That's the Skies of Arcadia Legends. And then grab that in Indigo GameCube, and I think that'll be it for the GameCube. Great system, lots of good exclusives. Some of them are still exclusive to the system, and even some that were multi-plat. Sometimes I actually preferred the GameCube version, but a fantastic console, the Nintendo GameCube.